The council chamber stretched so far that Ambassador Thomas Blake could not see where it ended. The walls curved upward into darkness, and floating platforms held representatives from species he had never imagined existed. Some were made of light. Others looked like living rock. A few existed in multiple dimensions at once, their forms shifting and impossible to focus on. Thomas stood in the center of a transparent sphere that hung suspended in the middle of everything. The sphere was designed to hold dangerous criminals, beings who could destroy planets with a thought. He was alone inside it, wearing his standard Earth diplomatic uniform, holding a simple datapad. Above him, a being made of pure energy materialized. Its voice came from everywhere at once, speaking directly into his mind. "You are Ambassador Thomas Blake, of the species called humanity. Your world is designated as Earth, located in Sector 447 of the Outer Spiral Arm. You stand accused of 12 violations of the Galactic Prohibited Technologies Act." Thomas looked up calmly. "We would like to discuss these accusations," the energy being flickered. "Discuss. Your species has existed in galactic space for only 38 of your years. You possess no advanced technology. You have no special biological abilities. Yet our monitoring systems detected impossible energy signatures coming from your solar system. Explain this immediately." Thomas glanced at his datapad. "Which specific incident are you referring to?" The chamber erupted in noise. Thousands of alien voices speaking in hundreds of languages created a wall of sound. A massive insectoid delegate rose from its platform, its voice cutting through the chaos. "Which incident?" "There were 17 separate violations detected in the past 6 months alone." Thomas scratched his head. "Right, yes. We have been conducting some research projects." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth surrounded by mathematical equations that made several species physically recoil from their viewing screens. The equations were complex beyond anything most civilizations achieved, even after thousands of years. A tall, crystalline being spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "Those are cosmic framework equations. Computing them requires processing power equivalent to a small star. It takes our most advanced systems 3 centuries to solve even one." Thomas looked at the equations and shrugged. "Oh, those. Robert in the physics department figured those out over a long weekend. He said they were interesting, but not particularly difficult." The silence that followed was absolute. Not one of the thousands of beings in the chamber made a sound. The energy being descended closer to Thomas. Its voice had changed. There was something underneath the authority now. Something that sounded almost like fear. "Your ship that brought you here. We analyzed its propulsion system. It operates on principles that should not exist according to known physics." "Known physics?" "Yes," Thomas said. "We discovered that the standard model had some errors. So we corrected them." "You corrected fundamental physics?" "Well, we updated it. The old version had bugs." Reptilian delegate stood, its scales rattling with agitation. "You cannot update the laws of reality like they are computer programs." Thomas and 2 other humans standing beside him exchanged glances. Dr. Rachel Kim, Earth's chief scientist, stepped forward. Captain David Martinez stood at attention on the other side. "Should we tell them?" Rachel asked quietly. "Probably should have mentioned this earlier," Thomas admitted. He turned back to face the council. "We discovered something about 3 years ago during our quantum research. Reality itself is not actually fundamental. It operates more like code. Extremely complex code, but still code. And humans happen to be very good at understanding and modifying code." The council chamber remained silent. Several species began urgent communications with their home worlds. Some were activating evacuation protocols. Before anyone could respond, every alarm system in the chamber activated at once. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. Security forces materialized from dozens of different species. All armed, all pointing weapons at the 3 humans. A new presence entered the chamber. It was massive, ancient, and terrifying. A sentinel intelligence, one of the galaxy's oldest artificial minds, manifested in physical form for the first time in 10,000 years. "Stop these proceedings immediately," the sentinel commanded. Its voice carried absolute authority, the energy being flickered uncertainly. Sentinel, why do you interrupt? I have accessed humanity's public information networks, their scientific databases, their educational materials. And what did you find? They must be contained. Immediately, what they have accomplished, what they are planning to do. It violates not just 12 prohibited technologies. They are violating prohibited technologies categories 1 through 53, including categories we have never had to enforce because we believe them impossible. The Sentinel projected an image from Earth's scientific journals onto every viewing screen in the chamber. The title read, Practical Applications of Universe Creation and Manipulation, a graduate-level course. Thomas winced. Ah, you found that. The energy being's form crackled with barely controlled power. Universe creation? You are teaching your students how to create universes. It is a graduate-level course, Rachel said. Only advanced students take it. And what do they do with this knowledge? Mostly simulations. Educational purposes. Some entertainment applications. The council chamber descended into complete chaos. Species were screaming. Some were fleeing. Others were calling for immediate military action against Earth. David leaned toward Thomas. Maybe we should have led with the diplomatic approach. Too late now, Thomas muttered. Security forces established multiple containment fields around the three humans. Reality anchors activated to prevent any manipulation of space-time. Temporal locks engaged. By the time they finished, the humans were surrounded by layers of the most advanced containment technology the galaxy possessed. The Sentinel continued scanning Earth's databases. With each new discovery, it added more security measures. They have tested universe creation, the Sentinel announced. 8 months ago, they created a pocket reality and observed its complete life cycle from beginning to end. The energy being descended until it was directly in front of Thomas. Explain this test. Every detail, Rachel pulled up a hologram from her own datapad. We created a small pocket universe, approximately 1 cubic kilometer in size. We initialized it with standard cosmological constants and let it develop naturally. After what amounted to 4 billion years of internal time, we observed the results. Then we reset it and tried different starting parameters. Standard scientific methodology. Standard. A delegate made of living water rippled with horror. Creating entire universes is not standard science. It is now, Rachel said. We have 3 universities offering courses on it. The theoretical framework is well established. The practical applications are still being explored. Multiple species began broadcasting distress signals to their governments. Several civilizations that had existed for millions of years were considering abandoning their homeworlds and fleeing to other galaxies. Thomas sighed. Look, you are overreacting. We are not planning to do anything dangerous with this technology. We just wanted to understand how reality works at a fundamental level. And you achieve this understanding by creating universes? The energy being asked, how else would you learn? Thomas seemed genuinely confused by the question. The Sentinel interrupted again. I have found something worse than universe creation. What could possibly be worse? The energy being asked, sounding defeated. A video from Earth's public entertainment network, posted by a citizen named Gregory. The title is, I created intelligent life in 43 minutes, new speed record. The video appeared on every screen. It showed a teenage human casually manipulating cosmic forces while drinking something and providing casual commentary as if he were playing a game. Thomas nodded. That is Greg, smart kid. Has a real talent for applied cosmology. He's a child, the crystalline being said, its voice shaking. 17 years old, I think. Your children can create life? With the proper equipment and training, yes. It is not particularly difficult once you understand the underlying principles. The entire council stared at the 3 humans in absolute horror. These beings had capabilities that should not exist. They spoke about universe creation the way other species talked, about cooking food or building simple machines, and they were still learning, still experimenting, still discovering new ways to manipulate the fundamental nature of reality. The energy being addressed, the Council. We must determine the appropriate response to this unprecedented situation. The session is suspended while we deliberate. As the platforms began to separate and species withdrew to private chambers, Thomas looked at Rachel and David. "That went better than expected," he said. Rachel stared at him. "We are surrounded by 27 containment fields, and the entire galaxy is terrified of us. How is this better?" "They did not immediately try to destroy Earth," David pointed out. "That is something." The three humans settled in to wait, unaware that their presence had just fundamentally changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The council chamber had been sealed for 3 hours. Thomas, Rachel, and David remained in the containment sphere, waiting. Around them, the thousands of alien species argued in urgent voices. The debate was visible through the transparent walls, though the sound was blocked. Rachel watched the security measures. They added 6 more containment layers while we were waiting. "Up to 33 now," David counted. "I think that is a record." Thomas was reading something on his datapad. His expression grew concerned. "We have a problem." The council is not just discussing containment. They are discussing elimination. "Elimination of what?" Rachel asked. "All of humanity? There is a proposal to sterilize Earth completely before we become too dangerous." Before anyone could respond, the energy being returned. With it came something else. Something that made every species in the chamber go completely silent. Even the most powerful delegates lowered themselves in what looked like respect or fear. 3 figures appeared in the center of the chamber. They were not physical beings. They existed in a state between dimensions, visible but not fully present in normal space. When they spoke, reality itself seemed to vibrate with their words. "We are the ancient watchers," they said in unison. "We have observed the development of civilizations since before this galaxy formed. We have information regarding the human species." The energy being flickered nervously. "Ancient watchers, your presence honors this council. Please share your knowledge. We know why humans can manipulate reality. We know what they truly are." Every being in the chamber focused complete attention on the watchers. Thomas felt his stomach drop. There was something in the way they said it that filled him with dread. "Tell us," the energy being requested. "Humans are not a naturally evolved species. They did not develop through normal biological processes. They are something else. Something far older and far more dangerous than you can imagine." Rachel stepped forward. "What are you talking about?" "We have complete fossil records. We know our evolutionary history. You know what you were allowed to know? What the seal permitted you to remember." One of the watchers moved closer to the containment sphere. It displayed an image of human DNA. The structure looked normal at first, but then the watcher highlighted specific sections. Those sections glowed with light that should not exist in normal matter. "This is a genetic seal. It exists in every human. It has been there for 12 billion years, placed at the moment of your species' creation. It serves one purpose: to make you forget what you were before you became human." Thomas felt cold. "Before we were human?" "Yes, you were the architects. The beings who created this entire universe 12 billion years ago. You shaped the fundamental forces. You seeded the galaxies with the potential for life. You designed the laws of physics themselves." The council chamber erupted in noise again. But the watchers raised their presence, and silence returned instantly. The crystalline being spoke carefully. "If humans are the architects, why were they sealed? Why were their memories erased?" "Because they became unstable. The architects possessed infinite power, but lacked wisdom. They began conducting experiments that threatened all of existence. They created paradoxes for entertainment. They made time run backward in entire galactic clusters to observe the results. They collapsed the barriers between dimensions because they wanted to see what would happen." The energy being moved closer to Thomas. "Is this true?" "I do not know," Thomas said honestly. "I do not remember any of this." "That is the purpose of the seal," the watcher continued. "After one of their experiments nearly destroyed causality itself, the architects realized what they had become. In a moment of clarity, they chose to seal themselves. They decided to live as limited biological beings, to experience existence from a mortal perspective, to learn through limitation what they could not learn through power. Rachel was scanning the DNA information the Watcher had provided. Her face had gone pale. This is real. I am running the analysis right now. This genetic marker exists in every human sample in our database. We just never saw it before because we were not looking for it. Or maybe we were unable to see it. The seal was designed to remain stable for millions of years, another Watcher explained. It would erode slowly, allowing humanity to mature gradually, to develop wisdom before regaining power. But something went wrong. What went wrong? David asked. Humans developed too quickly. Your species went from primitive tools to quantum manipulation in mere thousands of years. In the past 40 years alone, you have made discoveries that should have taken 40,000 years. Your experimentation with reality, your manipulation of cosmic forces, it is cracking the seal open from the inside. The Sentinel intelligence appeared again. I have calculated the timeline based on the degradation rate of the genetic marker. In approximately 4 months, the seal will fail completely. Every human will remember what they were. They will regain full access to their architect abilities. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. 8 billion humans suddenly remembering how to manipulate reality at will. 8 billion beings with the power to create and destroy universes. The energy being addressed Thomas directly. What will humanity do when the seal breaks? Will you resume your experiments? Will you threaten existence again? I do not know, Thomas said. I cannot answer for something I do not remember doing. Then we must decide now. A reptilian delegate stood. Do we attempt to prevent the awakening, or do we prepare for what comes after? The seal cannot be reinforced, the Watcher said. Any attempt to force it closed now would kill every human instantly. Their minds are already expanding beyond their biological limits. The process is irreversible. Rachel looked at her analysis again. If this is true, if we really are these architects, then Earth has maybe 4 months before 8 billion people simultaneously remember being gods. Not gods, the Watcher corrected. Something more dangerous. Gods can be understood, predicted, even reasoned with. The architects were chaos. They had infinite power and the curiosity of children. They reshaped reality on whims. They created and destroyed because they were bored. Thomas felt something stirring in the back of his mind, a memory that was not quite a memory, a sense of vast spaces and infinite time, of standing outside reality and shaping it like clay. He shook his head, pushing the sensation away. If we cannot stop this, then what do you propose? The energy being consulted with other council members, platforms moved through the chamber as species debated urgently. Finally, they reached a decision. We propose a quarantine. Earth will be isolated completely. No ships in or out. We will monitor the awakening from a safe distance. If humanity shows signs of the instability that plagued the architects, we will be forced to take extreme measures. You mean destroy us? David said flatly. We mean protect the trillions of other beings in this galaxy. We are sorry, but the safety of the many must take priority. Thomas looked at his two companions. Rachel was still processing the genetic data. David stood rigid, his military training keeping him calm despite the circumstances. We need to contact Earth, Thomas said. Our government needs to know about this. Communication is permitted, the energy being agreed. You have 6 hours before the quarantine takes effect. Use that time to prepare your people. The 3 humans were escorted to a communication facility. Thomas immediately opened a secure channel to Earth's primary command center. The face of Director Patricia Wells appeared on screen. Thomas, we have been watching the proceedings. What is happening? Director, you need to initiate Emergency Protocol 17. We have approximately 4 months before something happens to every person on Earth. Something that might change everything. He explained what the Watchers had revealed. The genetic seal. The architect origin. The impending awakening. Patricia listened in silence. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Are we really these architects? Is there any way to verify this? Rachel can send you the genetic data. But director, even if this is all true, we have 4 months to figure out what to do about it. And if the seal breaks? If 8 billion people suddenly remember having cosmic power? Thomas looked at the stars visible through the communication room window. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. Unaware that its entire population was about to discover they were something far more than human. Then we hope that humans have learned something in the past 12 billion years. We hope that we are better than we were. The communication ended. The quarantine was about to begin. And somewhere in human DNA, a 12-billion-year-old seal continued to crack. Back on Earth, strange things were beginning to happen. In laboratories across 6 continents, physicists were making discoveries that should not be possible. Equations appeared in their minds fully formed. Solutions to problems that had puzzled scientists for decades suddenly seemed obvious. Dr. Alan Price stood in his laboratory in London, staring at the whiteboard. He had just written out a complete unified theory of everything. It was perfect. It was elegant. It solved every outstanding problem in physics. He had no idea how he knew it was correct. The knowledge had simply appeared in his mind an hour ago, complete and undeniable. His assistant, Julie, stood beside him. "Professor, this is incredible. How did you figure this out?" "I did not," Alan said slowly. "I just remembered it. Like I knew it all along and just forgot." Similar events were happening everywhere. In Tokyo, a student named Kenji suddenly understood quantum mechanics at a level beyond any textbook. In Mexico City, an engineer named Maria solved a propulsion problem that would revolutionize space travel. In Mumbai, a programmer named Raj wrote code that could optimize itself, learning and improving without human input, and then the phenomena started getting stranger. In Seattle, a child named Amy was playing in her backyard when she stopped time. Not intentionally. She had reached for a falling ball and thought very hard about catching it. Time froze in a 3-block radius for exactly 42 seconds. When it resumed, Amy held the ball. Confused about why her parents were screaming in Snow Paulo, an artist named Carlos painted images of structures that existed in dimensions humans should not be able to perceive. People who looked at his paintings reported seeing colors that did not exist, and feeling spaces their minds could not process. The incidents were accelerating. Thomas received reports. From Earth, while still held at the council station, the quarantine had taken effect. Earth was now surrounded by a massive energy barrier, monitored by hundreds of ships from dozens of species. Nothing could get in or out. "We are receiving 78 reports per hour of unusual phenomena," Director Patricia informed him. "People are manifesting abilities we cannot explain. Yesterday, someone in Jakarta accidentally created a miniature storm system in their living room. This morning, a teacher in Cairo made mathematical equations appear in physical space, floating in the air like solid objects." "Is anyone hurt?" Rachel asked. "Not yet. But people are scared. They do not understand what is happening to them." Thomas looked at the genetic analysis Rachel had been conducting. The seal was degrading faster than the Watchers had predicted. The timeline had shortened from 4 months to 6 weeks. "We need to tell people the truth," Thomas said. "They need to know what they are becoming." The world broadcast went out 8 hours later. Every screen on Earth showed the same message. Thomas stood before a camera, flanked by Rachel and David. With the massive council chamber visible behind them through a window, "Act people of Earth. My name is Ambassador Thomas Blake. I am speaking to you from the Galactic Council headquarters. We have learned something about humanity that will sound impossible. Please listen carefully." He explained everything. The genetic seal, the architect origin, the awakening that was happening to every person on the planet. The reaction was predictable chaos. Some people refused to believe it. Others felt a sense of recognition, as if they had always known something was different about humanity. Religious groups debated what it meant. Scientists began immediate research to verify the claims. But the most significant reaction came from an unexpected source. A 9-year-old girl named Emma Blake, Thomas's daughter, appeared on her father's communication screen during a private call that evening. "Daddy." Her voice sounded different. Older somehow, despite her young age. I remember things. I remember making stars. Thomas felt his heart stop. What do you mean, sweetheart? I remember being somewhere else. Somewhere big. And I was making stars because I thought they were pretty. But some of them were too big, and they collapsed and made black holes. And I thought black holes were pretty too, so I made more. She paused. Daddy, did I hurt people when I did that? Were there people living near those stars? The question was innocent. The implications were cosmic. His 9-year-old daughter was remembering omnipotence and asking about consequences. Emma, I need you to promise me something. Whatever you remember, whatever you feel like you can do not do it yet. Not until we understand this better, okay, Daddy? But it is hard. It is like knowing you can breathe but being told to stop breathing. After the call ended, Thomas sat in silence. Rachel found him there an hour later. "It is really happening," he said quietly. "My daughter remembers creating stars. What happens when 8 billion people remember how to reshape reality?" "I do not know," Rachel admitted. "But something changed 2 hours ago." She showed him her latest data. The genetic seal degradation had stopped. Not completely, but it had slowed dramatically. Why? What changed? I think we did. I think by telling people the truth, by making them aware of what they are becoming, we triggered something. The seal is adjusting. It is not breaking apart anymore. It is transforming into something else. The ancient watchers appeared suddenly in their chamber. Thomas jumped, not expecting them. "You have changed the pattern," one watcher said. "By accepting the truth consciously, humanity is awakening differently than before. You are not breaking free of the seal. You are evolving it." "What does that mean?" David asked. "It means humanity has a choice now. You can fully awaken, regain all your architect abilities, return to what you were. Or you can choose to remain partially sealed, keeping your limitations growing slowly into your power over generations." Rachel stood. "Why would we choose to stay limited?" "Because unlimited power corrupted the architects. They had no constraints, no consequences, no reason to consider their actions. But humans have lived with limitation. You have learned what it means to struggle, to fail, to be mortal. Perhaps that has taught you wisdom." Thomas thought about Emma asking if she had hurt people when she made black holes. A child's question about cosmic responsibility. Maybe that was the difference. The architects had power, but no context for understanding what power meant. Humans had context. They had learned consequences. "How long do we have to choose?" He asked. "The seal will stabilize in approximately 3 days. At that point, humanity must decide collectively. Will you ascend back to what you were, or will you choose to remain human?" The 3 watchers vanished, leaving the humans alone with the most important decision their species would ever make. On Earth, 8 billion people felt the same question forming in their minds. Power or wisdom? Ascension or humanity? The choice that would define their future. And in the council chamber, thousands of alien species watched and waited to see what the awakening gods would choose. The galaxy held its breath for 3 days. Every species watched Earth, monitoring the energy readings, tracking the genetic changes, preparing for whatever came next. On Earth, the debate raged. News networks ran 24-hour coverage. Philosophers argued about the nature of power and responsibility. Religious leaders tried to reconcile this new knowledge with their beliefs. Scientists attempted to measure and quantify what was happening, but the most important discussions happened in homes. In families, between friends, Emma sat with her mother in their home in Colorado. Her father was still at the council station, but they video called every few hours. "Mom, what should we choose?" Emma asked. "If we remember everything, if we get all that power back, we could fix so many things. We could cure diseases. We could make sure no one was hungry. We could explore the whole universe." Her mother, Karen Blake, was a teacher. She thought carefully before answering. "But sweetheart, having the power to do those things is not the same as knowing whether we should." The Watchers said the architects had all that power, and they still made mistakes. Big mistakes. So we should stay human. Stay limited? I think we should stay wise. And maybe being limited is part of what makes us wise. Similar conversations happened everywhere. A construction worker in Berlin realized he could manipulate matter at the atomic level, reshape buildings with a thought, but he chose not to. If I can do this, he told his wife, I want to do it right. I want to understand it first. A doctor in Beijing found she could perceive diseases at the molecular level, see exactly what was wrong with any patient, but she did not immediately start healing everyone. Medicine is not just about fixing problems, she explained. It is about understanding the whole person. I need to learn how to use this ability responsibly. One by one. Humans were making their choice, but not everyone agreed. A group of scientists and technologists formed what they called the Ascension Movement. They argued that humanity should fully awaken, reclaim their architect abilities, and reshape the universe into something better. We have been given a gift, their leader, a physicist named Dr. Victor Rees, announced. We have the chance to become what we were always meant to be. Why should we choose to remain weak? The movement grew. Within 2 days, it had millions of followers. At the council station, Thomas watched the developments with growing concern. The species is dividing. We do not have consensus. Rachel was monitoring the genetic data. The seal will stabilize in 18 hours. If humanity is divided when that happens, I do not know what will occur. Part of the population might ascend while others do not. That would be catastrophic, David said. Imagine having some humans with godlike power and others without. The inequality would tear society apart. The Galactic Council reconvened. The energy being addressed, Thomas. Your species must reach agreement. A divided awakening could be worse than either choice alone. I know. But I cannot force 8 billion people to agree. That is not how humanity works. The crystalline delegate spoke. Then perhaps humanity needs to see what their choice really means. Perhaps they need to understand both paths fully. The ancient Watchers appeared again. We can show them. We can reveal the memories of what the architects truly were. Let them remember not just the power, but the consequences. Do it, Thomas agreed. Show us everything. The Watchers extended their consciousness to ear. Every human suddenly experienced a flash of memory. Not their own memories, but the memories of the architects. They saw the creation of galaxies, the joy of shaping stars and planets, the wonder of designing the fundamental forces, but they also saw the disasters. They saw experiments that destroyed entire civilizations. They saw reality torn apart and carelessly stitched back together. They saw power without wisdom, creation without responsibility. They saw the moment when the architects realized what they had become. The horror of understanding that their casual experiments had caused suffering on an unimaginable scale. And they saw the choice the architects made to seal themselves, to start over, to learn through limitation what they could not learn through power. The vision ended. 8 billion humans stood in silence, processing what they had seen. Emma called her father. She was crying. Daddy, I saw what we did. When we were architects, we hurt so many people because we did not think about what our actions meant. We treated the universe like a toy. I know, sweetheart. I saw it too. I do not want to be like that. Even if it means I could make pretty stars. I do not want to hurt anyone just because I am not paying attention. Across Earth, similar realizations were happening. The Ascension movement lost 90% of its followers within 6 hours. Seeing the truth of what unlimited power had meant changed perspectives dramatically. Dr. Victor Rees appeared on a global broadcast. I was wrong. I advocated for Ascension because I thought power would solve our problems. But power is not the solution. Wisdom is. And wisdom comes from limitation, from consequence, from having to think carefully about our actions, because we cannot simply undo our mistakes. The consensus was forming. Humanity was making its choice. But then something unexpected happened. The quarantine barrier. Round Earth suddenly activated its defensive systems. Alarms blared across the Council station. Every species went to high alert. "What is happening?" Thomas demanded. The Sentinel intelligence appeared. "We are detecting incoming vessels. Unknown configuration. They are approaching from outside our galaxy." New voice spoke, ancient and cold. It came through every communication system simultaneously. "We are the progenitors. We created the architects. We sealed them when they failed. We observe now that they have begun to awaken. This is unacceptable. We return to reclaim our creations and sterilize this galaxy to begin again." Well, I 72 hours until arrival. Thomas looked at Rachel and David. The choice humanity was making about their power suddenly became irrelevant. Beings that created the architects were coming to destroy everything. David spoke quietly. "Guess we need to figure out if choosing to be human includes choosing to defend ourselves?" The council chamber erupted in panic. Species began evacuating. Defense forces mobilized, and on Earth, 8 billion humans who were still deciding what they wanted to be suddenly faced a decision about what they needed to do. The progenitors were coming, and humanity had 72 hours to decide if they would face them as humans, as architects, or as something new entirely. The galaxy mobilized for war. But everyone knew it was futile. The progenitors were beings that created the architects. If the architects could create universes, what could their creators do? At the council station, military strategists from every species worked frantically. They built worst-case scenarios. They planned evacuation routes to other galaxies. They prepared defensive positions that they knew would fail. Thomas stood with Rachel and David, watching the preparations through a massive viewing window. The progenitor ships were visible now in the distance, not as physical objects, but as distortions in space itself. They moved by rewriting reality as they traveled. "We have 48 hours, Rachel said. "The genetic seal will stabilize in 6 hours. The progenitors arrive in 48. That gives us 42 hours to decide what to do." "Do we awaken fully?" David asked. "Fight power with power?" "The Watchers said the architects could not defeat the progenitors when they tried before," Thomas reminded them. "That is part of why they sealed themselves. They realized they were not powerful enough." "Then what do we do?" Rachel asked. "We cannot run. The Watchers confirmed the progenitors can track us anywhere. We cannot hide. We cannot negotiate. What options are left?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A transmission from Earth, from a group of students at a university in California. The message was simple. Do not fight them with power. We do something the architects never did. We create something the progenitors have never seen. Thomas opened a communication channel. "Explain." Young man appeared on screen. His name was Michael Torres, age 19, studying applied cosmology. "The architects tried to fight the progenitors with force. They used their reality-shaping abilities as weapons. It did not work because the progenitors are better at that than they are. So what do we do differently? We use what we learned as humans. We learned that power is not the most important thing. We learned about cooperation, consequences, ethics. What if we create something that embodies those lessons? Something the progenitors cannot understand because they have never valued anything except power." Rachel leaned forward. "You want to create what exactly?" "An ethics engine. A framework built into the structure of reality itself that helps. Beings understand the consequences of their actions before they take them. A tool for wisdom." The idea spread rapidly. "Within 3 hours, Universities across Earth were collaborating on the design. The knowledge was flowing now. Memories of architect abilities, mixing with human ethics and philosophy. The ancient watchers appeared before Thomas. This is unexpected. The architects never considered creating such a thing, because the architects thought power was enough, Thomas said. Humans learned it is not. Will the progenitors accept such a gift? They come to destroy, not to receive presents. Maybe not. But it is the only strategy we have that has not already failed. The genetic seal stabilized 6 hours later. Humanity made their choice. They would remain partially awakened. They would keep enough architect memory to understand their capabilities, but maintain enough human limitation to remember wisdom. 8 billion people felt the change. They were not gods. They were not powerless mortals. They were something in between, something new, and they immediately began building the ethics. It took the form of a crystalline structure that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Every human contributed to it, adding their understanding, their experiences, their hard-won wisdom about what it meant to use power responsibly. Artists designed its aesthetic elements, making it beautiful beyond description. Scientists crafted its mathematical foundations, ensuring it was logically perfect. Philosophers embedded ethical frameworks at its core. Children added innocence and wonder, asking questions like Emma's question about whether creating black holes had hurt anyone. The structure grew in the space between Earth and the approaching progenitor fleet. It was visible from the council station, a masterpiece of light and logic and meaning. What will it do? The energy being asked Thomas, when someone interacts with it, they will understand the full consequences of their actions. Not just the immediate effects, but the ripples through time and space. They will feel what others feel. They will see what they cannot see. They will understand. And you believe this will stop the progenitors? I believe it is worth trying. The progenitor fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 6 massive vessels that hurt to look at directly. They existed in states that violated physics. Ships that were more concept than matter. A communication came through. We are the progenitors. You will be unmade, Thomas responded. We created something for you, a gift. A demonstration of what we learned while sealed. We require no gifts from failed experiments. Then consider it a final testament. We ask only that you examine it before you destroy us. 6 hours. That is all we request. Silence. Then you may have 3 hours. The lead progenitor consciousness extended itself toward the ethics engine. The galaxy watched, barely daring to hope. The progenitor touched the structure and stopped. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The other progenitor ships held position, waiting. Finally, the lead progenitor spoke. Its voice had changed. There was something new in it, something that might have been uncertainty. What is this? A tool for understanding consequences, Thomas replied. A framework for wisdom. We gave the architects power. They failed to use it properly. We returned to correct this failure. They failed because power alone was not enough. They needed wisdom too. We are offering you that wisdom. Another long silence. The progenitor consciousness remained immersed in the ethics engine, experiencing something it had never known. Doubt. Reflection. The weight of its own actions across eons. We created the architects to shape realities. We sealed them when they proved unstable. We never considered teaching them. We never considered that power required guidance. Will you destroy us? Thomas asked. The progenitor fleet began to change. The ships moved into new formations, less aggressive, more contemplative. You have created something we did not anticipate. A framework for ethical action built into the structure of reality itself. This is not failure. This is evolution. The lead progenitor addressed the entire galaxy. Humanity will remain unsealed, partially awakened, as they have chosen. They have earned the right to exist as they wish. We offer them protection. Any species that threatens Earth will answer to us. The fleet began to withdraw, but the lead progenitor sent one final message to Thomas. You asked for 3 hours? We needed 6. This tool you created, this ethics engine, we will share it with other galaxies. Other realities. You have given the universe something it desperately needed. Thank you. The progenitors departed, taking copies of humanity's ethics engine to spread across dimensions. The council chamber erupted in celebration. Species that had prepared for annihilation now celebrated survival. The quarantine around Earth dissolved. Thomas, Rachel, and David stood together. Watching Earth shine in the distance? We did it, Rachel said. Hardly believing it. We proved that wisdom can be more powerful than raw strength, David added. Thomas smiled. We proved that humans are really good at one thing. What is that? The energy being asked, appearing beside them. Finding creative solutions to impossible problems. Usually while everyone else is panicking. 6 months later, Earth had changed. Humanity existed in their new state, partially awakened, partially sealed. They remembered enough to know what they were capable of, maintained enough limitation to stay grounded. The ethics engine spread across the galaxy. Wars ended before starting. Exploitation ceased. Species used it to evaluate their decisions, to understand consequences, to act with wisdom instead of just power. A new position was created in the Galactic Council, Human Liaison. Because when you might accidentally bend space-time while trying to fix your refrigerator, someone should be available to help. Thomas returned to Earth to find his daughter Emma waiting. She hugged him tightly. Daddy, I used the ethics engine yesterday. I wanted to make pretty lights in the sky for my friends, but the engine showed me that the energy I would use could hurt satellites and communications, so I did not do it. I am proud of you, sweetheart. I am still learning how to be careful with power. We all are. But at least now we have help. That was the key. Humans had power now, but they also had wisdom to guide it. They could still do incredible things, but they stopped to ask whether they should before asking whether they could. In his office, Thomas received a message from Earth's space program. New situation. An engineer in Berlin figured out how to reverse entropy in closed systems. Says it is simple. Requesting guidance. Thomas sighed, smiled, and reached for his coffee. Here we go again. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that responds to impossible challenges by saying, "Hold my beer," and then actually solving them, especially when that species used to be gods and just might remember how to be gods again if you push them too. Far, the threat level for humanity remained at maximum. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were unpredictable, creative, and just wise enough to be terrifying. Most days, they were the best thing that ever happened to the galaxy. Some days, they were the most worrying thing, usually. They were both at the same time, and that was exactly how humanity liked it. Retroclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.